Hey everybody. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding Ghost of Yotei sales online. This video is meant to cover them, plus inconsistencies found in narratives being spread online with the goal of combating misinformation. Not with the goal of trying to pass on an image or an idea of Yotei flopping, as it has been a running theme since the data that was dropped by an analyst. We'll get into these numbers in just a second so we can talk about where the problems are, and to also call out the analyst himself and Colin Moriarty, a semi-retired game journalist who likes to pop his head back into the space every now and then, this time to make himself look like a clown. Sorry for the delay on the Dying Light video, I had to take a bit of a detour here with this one first, and I'm sorry if I sound off. I've been a bit sick in the past couple of days, so my voice is a bit raspy. Dying Light video is still in the cards, it's coming, but let's not waste any more time here and dive right into reality. From the beginning, it was natural that this game would sell reasonably. It is, after all, a first-party PlayStation game. Not even Days Gone itself flopped. It only failed in the eyes of PlayStation's insane expectations at the time after breaking sales records with God of War and Spider-Man in 2018. Ghost of Yotei is coming off of the huge success of Tsushima, so a reasonable amount of sales is assured. However, it's obvious to everyone who isn't either shilling or cope-maxing that this game's success is nowhere near what people are trying to make it out to be, and that its sales should have actually been way better, and there is an obvious problem with it that way too many out there in the game's media refuse to admit as usual. Even guys like Colin Moriarty, who prance around as pillars of objectivity, but recently shown how lacking they actually are in that area, and how much they still share in common with the mainstream games media that keeps proving itself untrustworthy again and again. And the sales should have been better, not because it's Yotei and the game is some kind of triumph, it really isn't, and I will make my own review eventually, but because it should have been the sequel to Tsushima. When you have established franchises with established characters and a fanbase that is hungry for more, this is what you generally get. And so the sequel should have sold even more than the first game, or at the very least be at the same level, rather than falling behind by almost half and even more in Japan. That's basically the issue here. Tsushima had staying power, it was big enough to make this a franchise, and Yotei on the other hand is too weak of a sequel, which isn't even a surprise of course, because it's not a sequel, it's a reboot, and on top of that, it's one that follows a very popular pattern with Sony and beyond of doing the same thing again and again, but with a girl leading it. So people like to pretend as if this is a huge success and bring up Tsushima along with it for comparisons, but at the end of the day, those comparisons look really bad. They're a fantasy, really. And so when I and so many other fans out there have been criticizing this for months, we really haven't been proven wrong. Like, at all. The cope is to pretend as if this was to sink the game or whatever, to make a tally of it or something like that and rack up points or some shit. So let me try to clear that up for people who might be confused. The boycott was a personal thing. People who decided not to give this company money did so because they were disgusted. My previous video on the boycott covers why, and covers why I also personally didn't want to give them my money. A lot of people seem to be forgetting that this isn't some petty bullshit over wokeness or female protagonists. The boycotters of this game were disgusted by the developer celebrating and mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination, and then the spineless response from the studio. This isn't about numbers, it's about principles, and these people are so brain-rotted that they can't even understand what that word means. But regardless, and as it pertains to me, I had no illusions as to this game's sales, nor to force or demand or even tell my viewers to do it too. I said it then and I'll say it again, and carry on saying it in the future. You guys do what you want to do with your money. At the end of the day, no matter what decisions you guys make with your money, I welcome you all back in the channel regardless. I mean, Jesus. My cousin bought the game day one as I suspected that he would, and I had him, his girl, and his parents over for Sunday lunch just over a week ago. I didn't fucking disown him because he spent money on this. I'm not an unhinged nutcase, and I understand that there's people who don't even know what's going on in these studios or who don't care. Like, that's the difference here. I'm not ideologically tied to this game. Of course, if I see some bullshit being spread online about it, or stuff that misrepresents it, or reviews that glaze it and don't make any sense, of course I might talk about it, of course I might call it out. But that's because something is not making sense and I'm going to make a case for it, which you can then agree or disagree with. Simple as that. but fanatics want to see this game succeed because it feeds them spiritually or some shit like that. Like, they need the numbers to be good, not because they like the game. Hell, you barely see these people glazing the game itself, making posts about the story, or about some deep quest that they found that meant a lot to some of them, or some string of open world activities that impressed them. Like, no, all you see is bamboo cutting and cooking clips. Well, to be fair, I've also seen clips recently showing this over here, which is an open world thing that happens and hilariously exposes how weak the game is in these aspects. The thing that happens here is there are specific bandit soldiers that roam the land and it can beat you in a fight, and instead of killing you, the screen goes black and then you pop up in a small little camp. Not a big enemy camp, just a small one with a fireplace and like 2 soldiers having a meal in front of the fire. They kidnapped you and are taking you to the main leader of the Yotei 6, but as you can see here, they don't even remove your weapons off of you. So they kidnap the person with the highest bounty in the land, the most dangerous goddamn person that currently lives. Aside from their leaders, of course. The person who has killed several members of the Yotei 6 clan, the person who is indeed so incredibly dangerous that she is called a non-ryo, a vengeful spirit that refuses to die and kills viciously. And they leave you tied up to a post with ropes from the dollar store, which you break out of with literally no effort, and with your weapons and gear still on you. So you don't even need to sneak around camp to get your weapons back first, you know, risking death due to only having fist melee combat available, which by the way is in the game. You can fight people with your fists if they disarm you, so it's already in the game. They wouldn't even have to, you know, make a whole new fucking system for this specifically. They could just use the resources that they have, but instead there's nothing. Your screen fades to black, you press X a couple of times, she frees herself from the ropes without making a single sound, and then you press triangle to assassinate the guards. You're done and you're back on the road. This is the most low effort shit I've ever seen, just to try and put in yet another little gimmick trying to pass itself off as a deeper game. A game like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. The Red Dead Redemption 2 of samurai games, where you can get food for cooking but it has no depth, nor hunting. Where you can camp and meet strangers but again no depth. Where you can be beaten by an enemy and instead of a game over screen you are surprised by being taken away, but again no depth, no actual thought put into it, no nothing. Basically, it's an illusion of depth made to make you think that the game is more than a very linear, very safe, very predictable, and very on-rails open-world experience with next to no life breathed into it. Next to no moments that keep you on your feet, etc. Honestly, I think even the whole thing that the game has, that little gimmick of where you choose to go after whichever bandit leader you want to, I think that whole thing is itself an illusion. I think there's an order that the game forces you to go through, but I'll only be able to confirm this when I play it myself. It's straight up an old and outdated system that disguises itself as something new because of good graphics. But don't you worry fellas, we'll get to this and much more when I eventually make my breakdown of this game. Subscribe and stay tuned if you're new. Anyway, that little kidnapping thing, it falls flat on its ass, but to Yotei fans apparently this is a super awesome and surprising detail that raises the bar. Again guys, this game's hype is astroturfed to infinity and beyond. You gotta have never played another proper video game before to think that this shit goes hard. But anyway, they don't have to see those numbers go up because they like the game, but because they ideologically need it to make big numbers so they can satiate their thirst to make posts like these where they can go, the boycott did nothing. Or like Colin Moriarty here, doing the same joke that Jason Schreier did last year about Veilguard. Go woke, go bro, top the charts? Before having to delete the post months later when it was undeniable that it failed. And this is really all because the people who chose to boycott this game over the Charlie Kirk situation, or who simply chose to not buy it because they didn't see the value in the $70 price tag, or because they were interested in the continuation of Jin's story and so don't really care to buy the same game repackaged with someone else as a protagonist 300 years detached from that first game, literally live rent-free in their heads. That's right, many of you may not know this because you're not on social media, but most of you guys watching this video right now, I imagine, are people who did not buy this. You guys live rent-free in these morons' minds because they can't imagine how there can be people who are uninterested in this game for a myriad of different reasons. They can't even conceive of gamers who, for example, spent their money on other games right now in September and Broketober, like, I mean shit, I don't know, take your pick. Borderlands 4, Hell is Us, Dying Light the Beast, Chronos The New Dawn, Battlefield 6, hell, even Call of Duty, it came out very recently, etc. Or even something a little more detached, like for example Lost Soul Aside and Metal Gear Solid Delta in the final weeks of August, or something that they were waiting for after Yotei, like for example Bloodlines 2, or anything else from their bucket lists that essentially got them to think, okay, that's my spare cash for now, I don't have another $70 for Yotei, so I'm just going to wait. They can't even conceive of this very basic, very normal reality that gamers like us go through every goddamn month for multiple reasons. On one hand, they don't even know what it is to work for your money and use that money to buy games, because they're mostly composed of morons who don't even actually play video games, they only come out for the main shit, so they don't even know about half of the titles that I just mentioned. Or they're these ambassadors and gaming hype accounts and milquetoast content creators that get their free codes for these fucking games in their inbox. I'm not gonna name any names, but over the last few days I've been getting a lot of posts from several companies showing up on my timeline while scrolling, telling content creators to drop their little names below in the comments so that these people who distribute game keys can send one of them early so that they can start streaming the game and making content for the game. I saw people that were only averaging about 200-300 views on their videos getting keys. No, not 2 million, not 200,000, not even 2,000, just 200. And for the life of me, fellas, I have no idea what the fuck is going on and when did this happen. I'm still of the time where in order for you to get a free key in the mail, you know, in the email obviously, to play the games that are going to be coming out for making guides or making reviews or whatever, you needed to actually have some name to yourself. Like, these things were limited, but now everybody's fucking getting them. I have no idea how much money these companies are burning by literally just giving game keys to people who are not going to be making a return on the dollar amount that each of their games is worth. But hey, that's not my fucking problem. My problem is people who don't have their money on the line telling me about how to spend my fucking money and misrepresenting a game to their fan bases because they don't really have to scrutinize over a game's quality because they want to bang for their buck rather than the latest sludge, since they're just given the keys to play them. Days, you're being bad faith, you're being a bad guy, come on, these are just small creators, I don't care. Moving on. Lastly and most importantly, because they can only see one goddamn thing, and that is this obsession for putting this fucking game on a pedestal. Congratulations, fellas. Whether you're in on the controversy and you took a stand against the game and you're just boycotting it, or if you're just a moderate dude who is simply wary of how you spend your money, you are living rent-free in these retards' minds. But alas, at the end of the day, all of this scope means nothing to me, and I suspect that it's the same for a lot of us out there, some of whom I do know because I read your comments on my videos, and in the cases of some content creators, I watch their videos and posts where they didn't really call this game a flop, they just talked about a myriad of other things surrounding it, and the fact that it would underperform next to Tsushima, which it did, because it can't emulate that success. A lot of content creators aren't out there trying to say that this game is a flop, trying to deny the reality that it is a massive release and therefore it's probably going to make its money back, but simply scrutinizing, double-checking, and calling out this weird narrative online about this being a huge success that is equal or even above Tsushima. I mean, hell, the very first thing that we saw on the day of release was some random account saying that the game already had over 1 million sales. It cited no sources, no nothing, and video game journalism websites ran with the story. What, we can't call out suspicious things or blatant lies because somehow that's going to automatically put us on the other extreme and pretend as if we're saying that this game sold nothing? Oh, give me a break, fellas. That's why all this scope really means nothing. At the end of the day, it hasn't really disproven anything. The game is still mid as fuck, it's still lacking enough upgrades that justify the sequel, and if you stick around to check out my video on Dying Light the Beast, you'll even know that it has nothing to do with it carrying similarities to the previous games. It's because it chose to do nothing with them, because it's not a goddamn sequel. It's a reboot with a bland-ass story that you're forced to play through in Japanese audio because of how bad the actress is at reading her lines. At the end of the day, Ghost of Yotei is still a game that should have actually been named Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever else and followed Jin's story. If it had been the case, it would have managed to beat Tsushima's sales record and then some, because it would have actually had hype behind it instead of all this fucking controversy and fake astroturfed bullshit with clips of content creators and PlayStation brand ambassadors posting clips, patting foxes, cutting bamboo, cooking fish and mushrooms, and playing guitar in a field of flowers. How the fuck am I finding myself more excited for The Outer Worlds 2 after Avowed's disgraceful performance earlier this year over Yotei? That's how bad the clips that these people share have been. How have these people failed so hard in building up hype for this game that I'm even ending up ordering The Outer Worlds 2 over Yotei? Now of course I've got the channel, which means I'm going to be making content for it, which obviously pushes me to buy a game far faster than if I didn't, which I wouldn't. In this case, I would have bought Ninja Gaiden 2 or Gaiden. It's gonna be another fucking problem. I can't say Yotei, whatever the fuck, you know, and now I can say Gaiden or Gaiden. If I say Gaiden, people are gonna say, what are you, fucking gay? If I say Gaiden, people are gonna say, what are you, a fucking weeb? So, I mean, it is what it is, fellas, over here at the YouTube agency headquarters of the Decembro show. But anyway, moving on, putting Jin out to pasture to replace him with an underdeveloped girl boss voiced by a radical far-left activist threw a wrench in the franchise. And now, instead of soaring even higher with this second game to establish a trilogy, it is in decay, and future plans for expansions or even future installments are up in the air, rather than an easy call like it was the last time. Rumor has it that this game's budget is actually very good, as in, it's low. It's everything I've ever dreamed of games in this overpriced AAA space to do, which is to cut down costs on ridiculous shit and just make a video game, so they can sell and make their profits faster and smoothly than when studios go and spend $200 to $300 million getting themselves into trouble. So with a budget this low, according to the rumors out there, of course, attention, it's rumors, by the way, none of it has been confirmed yet, but there are rumors that the budget is between 60 and 100 million. So with a budget this low, if this is the case, they will make their money back. And with that, they might even think of some expansion to add later. But regardless, this game is not the hit that Tsushima was. It's not even a continuation of that hit. Even with the projections some analysts have done, it has shown a drop-off in sales volume of 40%. And with the reported numbers from Japan, which they actually do give out, they don't hide away like the Western industry, it's actually a disgrace. Not only did this game fail to be the appealing hit that the original was, especially towards the population that it was made to represent, inspire, and enamor, it failed to do so, and there was also another fall off in recurring sales in the second week. Again, this game is not a flop by the definition of the word. I never claimed it would be. Hell, I never even claimed that Shadows would be a flop, and then I was surprised by how badly it sold and by how Tencent just took the goddamn franchise. And to be honest, I actually didn't even claim Veilguard to be a flop either, since it was a Dragon Age game and, well, I thought that it was going to sell far better than it did. Like, that one was straight up a confirmed flop by even the company itself. That kind of goes to show my proclivity to being an optimist and giving these games and companies a lot of good faith and leeway, rather than just jumping to negative conclusions. So again, this isn't a flop, but it's not a huge success either, like these companies and these analysts and all of these other morons are trying to make it out to be. I mean, what are we drinking here? Piss? You giving me piss and you're telling me it's champagne or something? What are we doing here? And if I gotta keep making videos about this, if I gotta keep calling this shit out again and again and again throughout 2026, I will. If the games industry refuses to be honest and prefers to push narratives, I'll happily be part of the counter-narrative here on YouTube. This is a failure from the studio and company to take advantage of the huge momentum that Ghost of Tsushima had and deliver a powerful sequel that would crush the first game's sales or at the very least equate them. This was a monumentally easy W to collect. All they had to do was appeal to their original fanbase. Instead, they chose to go in another fucking direction to appeal to a different crowd. A modern crowd, with a hip activist as the protagonist because that's what big corporations like to do these days in the name of social impact. After going through that season over the past few years of corporatizing themselves to the point where they have to comply with the SG bullshit to secure financial benefits. And that decision was provably stupid. Much of the players this game managed to still have are here because of the hype the first game carried. They're not here for the actress, or for the new character, or for the ridiculous stances from the studio being unable to even confidently disavow retards celebrating and mocking the viral assassination of a father on camera. For as long as these facts remain true, and for as long as Sony and Sucker Punch keep going down the same road, the franchise decay will only continue. If the next Ghost game after this decides to double down and even do a sequel where Atsu returns and I don't know, maybe you go and hunt down another group of masked morons, then the numbers are going to be even worse than these were, because unlike Yotei, Tsushima will be a distant memory to carry its sales. All it'll have is the PlayStation brand name and the shills. Before we get to the main enchilada of this video, let me just address one bit of copium that comes up very often whenever sales numbers are brought up, because we're going to get into the sales numbers up next, or rather not really the sales numbers, but the data that we do have. So one of the major retorts that I see whenever people compare Tsushima's sales to Yotei is people bringing up COVID. Basically, the first game released in August of 2020, which means there were a lot of people at home playing video games, and so this inflates the sales a bit. But what I find funny about this is how COVID is kind of like the Schrodinger's cat situation though, where it both impacted things and didn't impact things depending on whether or not it suits a narrative. For instance, during this time there was more people engaging with games and streaming, so yes, it's true that sales went up. It doesn't necessarily justify why fans of the first game would suddenly disappear for the second game, but that doesn't matter. Let's just get back to the Schrodinger's COVID situation. Because of this extra attention and sales in the industry, the companies went and expanded themselves with a false sense of growth that they never should have had in the first place. I'll give you fellas a practical example from my personal life. I work in a snack bar / restaurant. When there's construction going on in the area, my activity goes up because we get construction workers coming in for lunch and for beers in the afternoon. Yes, they drink during work hours. It's the Portuguese way. It is what it is. Anyway, the boss man knows that this is not a permanent thing. It's because there's construction going on, so we don't go and hire 2 more waiters and make new, bigger contracts with suppliers to increase our stock at a lower price per shipment, because these contracts are contracts. They have time requirements, like for example for a year or 2 years, or quotas to meet where you have to order a certain minimum amount of stock from them. And construction generally only takes a few months. Then it's over and all of those workers move on and our activity goes back down again. So there's no reason why billionaire companies in the games industry wouldn't have the business acumen that a random retard like me who serves hot dogs and Pepsi Cola does. And if they don't, then please offer me the goddamn job. They shouldn't have expanded and corporatized themselves to the degree that they did. This was a huge mistake, and so now, whenever there are layoffs, people like myself tend to see them as normal. They inflated themselves during that season, straight up bloated up their studios with useless hires and useless departments that don't even contribute anything for the video games that they're making. In fact, they often make them worse because they hyperfixate on things like political correctness. And so now that season is over, numbers are deflating, and so must the companies. Layoffs are a normal thing. People gotta go. But these people here using COVID as an excuse now to defend why Yotei did not sell as much as Tsushima are the same people who will negate these effects when it comes to the companies that bloated themselves. And so actually it doesn't matter, the companies are still rich, the developers are still worthy, the games are still good, yada yada yada, and it's actually just the fault of grifters online doing hate campaigns. In rolls the cope. So there we go. Oh, it totally exists and matters here in this particular thing, because whoa, look, everyone was home playing video games back then, and so everyone bought Tsushima. But now, nuh-uh, there's no more lockdowns, and so suddenly all the gamers are stuck in an Amazon warehouse pissing into a bottle while moving boxes so they can buy it. Like, come on, man, give me a break here again. How many breaks am I gonna need with this one? And now on to the main course. So the other big major thing that just happened has been the whole thing with Mat Piscatella, someone I've already mentioned several times in the past here on the channel, coming out with his classic post about how the game is actually doing great because it's a top seller in the United States. Initially, I was just going to do a small mention in regards to how this man, who is an industry analyst and works for Circana, has been dead wrong in the past and even presented maliciously framed data in order to make games look like they were selling like hotcakes when they were not. He did this shit with Shadows earlier this year, which I covered in its own video, and this was just my first time seeing it firsthand, where he got data arranged in a way that counted physical sales in a dry spot and excluded major competition like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Something similar was done again for Shadows later in the summer, claiming that the game is also a top seller in Europe, but the data was once again filtered by all manner of barriers. It only included some countries, it only included specific types of sales, and the data was so skewed that the announcements by the mainstream media was that Shadows actually outsold every goddamn new game that came out this year. Here's the headline, fellas, I'm not making anything up. Feast your eyes on it because it's important for the Colin Moriarty roast session that we're about to go into next. And it's also important to see what games journalists do with these fucking skewed data reports. They take it and make false claims like this. I made a separate video on this too, you can check it out right here, I'll put a link in the top comment and the description. I went into more detail there, so I'm not going to do it right here in this video so that it doesn't get too long. It's already too long as we speak. Plus, it's not really necessary anyway, like you can call out the bullshit very quickly here with just one example, which is Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter Wilds actually sold incredibly well. Issues aside, this game hit insane concurrent numbers on Steam and reported 10 million sales a few months ago. Sales! Meanwhile, Shadows, as per their last update from Ubisoft, has only reported 5 million players, so it's not even actual sales and it's not even close. So if it's not even sales and it's not even close, how the fuck did Shadows manage to outsell every single fucking new game that released this year? How could this be? Well, it didn't. It's really as simple as that. It's fiction. But articles like this exist anyway because, well, as I said, I got videos covering the situation. I'm sorry, I don't want to waste too much time here on things I've already covered, so if you're interested, you can check those out. The point is that this was my first engagement with shit like this from Mat Piscatella and also Alinea Analytics. This is what they do. Not to say that sometimes they aren't correct, of course they are. Otherwise, they would be in disgrace. But sometimes they're wrong, and we'll get to that in a second. And so through this engagement, I saw how ridiculous it is to just take everything at face value. Oh, but Des, he is an official analyst in the games industry. Why would he lie to us? Yeah, and I'm the fucking intergalactic president of the Hot Dog Association. Well, what are we gonna do now about this? What's the next move here? Well, I don't know, but I'll show you some more instances where he was wrong. He also reported that Star Wars Outlaws was a top 3 best-selling game last year. I don't think I need to get into how abysmally wrong this shit is, how broken the game was at release, how bad it was overall, and how it wasn't a bestseller at all. Somehow we even vouched for Dragon Age Veilguard. Oh, if the PC volume was included, it would have placed higher on the best-selling titles chart, perhaps as high as the top 3. But hey, it is what it is. Digital sales were not included. Why would an unbiased source, who is just trying to report the data and nothing else, with no other ulterior motives at all, make a random fucking assumption about a game being yet again on the top 3 best sellers if only he had the PC sales volume added onto it? What's the point of this exactly, if not precisely to do what I just said that he's trying to do, which is to pass these games off as successes, just to counter the general narrative that is surrounding them at the time, which was negative for Star Wars Outlaws and of course negative for this game right here, the Dragon Age Veilguard, I mean obviously. If by any astronomical chance Colin Moriarty finds my little channel and watches this video, are your eyes open to the bullshit yet? Do you see where these issues come from? We may have differences, of course we will, everyone does, but on this issue, which is the issue that you went on to have a conversation with Smash JT with, and instead devolved into ad hominems and useless shit about his content that didn't respond at all to the arguments on the table, on this issue, at least on this issue, do you see the bullshit yet, or do you need the fucking Hubble telescope? Veilguard literally fell on its ass. That's how bad the game performed. Even EA themselves had to come out and be like, yep, it's bad, fellas, it's real bad. And yet here we are, with Mat Piscatella going off about how good it was doing. Like seriously, give me a fucking break. How many breaks am I gonna have to request on this video? But once again, what do the game Journos do? They run with it because they want to shill for Ubisoft. Once with Star Wars Outlaws and then again with Assassin's Creed Shadows. They want to shill for EA and BioWare. They want to shill for Sony and Sucker Punch and pass these games off as wins. Not because these games are good, not because they even like the games, but because they need them to do well for their narratives. So I'm sorry, but no. Random data from this same guy who keeps presenting it in a biased way isn't gonna do it for me. Bullshit me once, and I'm going to say, okay, maybe it was a mistake. Bullshit me twice, and I'm going to start double checking your shit. Bullshit me 3 times, and I'm going to be so onto your ass that you may tell me that the sky is blue, and I'm going to go outside just to make sure, brother. This guy has shown himself to be the kind of guy who will have unassuming numbers in front of him that don't mean much, but will do his utmost to say, oh well, actually, it's really good, and yeah, it's actually great. Or, oh well, you know, if there was some more data from over there, this would actually be on the top 3, I think. You can eat my entire ass.
The whole thing.
This dude is one of the sources from which game journalists are able to write bullshit articles about games and their successes to own the chuds. So I'm gonna need a little bit more than that to be convinced. And yes, Assassin's Creed Shadows was that bad. It really was. And his little report on Ghost of Yotei exposed that, because this big list that we're going to cover right now after this doesn't even feature Shadows in the top 20. So a few months ago, this was the top game. But now, where is it? Where's Waldo, brother? Where's Yasuke, the grand success that was outselling other Assassin's Creed games in the franchise? That's literally all there is to it. I don't even make any illusions that this game was a flop and won't make its money back. My criticism against it even revolves around multiple other things that have nothing to do with how the game performs, so on and so forth. But what I will not stand for is someone coming in and telling me and everyone else that this game is a resounding success. It's better than Tsushima, it's selling just as well as that one did, but oh wait a minute, actually there's a 40% drop off, and oh wait a second, it didn't even get close to how well Tsushima did in Japan, and the 2-week sales are so fucking terrible that it killed the game's entire momentum. But hey, it doesn't matter. None of it matters because COVID. Or because don't look at the data, don't look at what's being said, don't look at the reality of it, just trust Mat Piscatella and Colin Moriarty because, oh, they got credentials. It's almost like game journalists in general have credentials and access, and they've been bullshitting us for over a decade already. For years, people's credentials when it comes to the games industry haven't mattered at all. People trust track records. People trust what they can see. When it comes to game reviews, they don't even trust you even if you're genuine. All it takes is you having a taste that is different to theirs, and they're going to ditch you and check out some other review channel. It is what it is. Your credentials are piss. Now let's get to Colin Moriarty more specifically. So if you're not aware, Colin Moriarty also got wrapped up in this, and essentially his stance comes down to shut up, listen to the big industry people who are bigger than you and know better than you, and don't question them unless you're a grifter, which by the way is the same stance as Mat Piscatella. He also went and alluded to that anyone showing any sort of suspicion or questioning these numbers should be disregarded or given the side eye, whichever the wording that he chose. We'll get to this with Colin here in just a second. second. First, to get the full story, it started right here with Colin expressing happiness saying, "I'm happy for Sucker Punch that Ghost of Yotei is a certified commercial hit. It's already the 18th best-selling game in the United States for the entire year, after only 3 days of sales were counted. Great sign, it's a huge step up from Tsushima, a classic sequel, really recommended." First of all, let me just take a second here because there's something that's bothering me. This is very clearly not a sequel, so right off the get-go, this guy's just being retarded for no reason. Second, a huge step up? Somebody please get the glazing department on the line, I've got to report a leak. I guess we're just going to ignore the meaning that words have. Again, there's always wiggle room for subjectivity, don't get me wrong guys, but to call this a huge step up in his position, when the game plays exactly the same, and even in areas where things were added like the new weapons to use for example, they went and cut out other features that existed like the stance system, significantly reducing the upgrade to combat that we actually needed, and just watering down all of these new weapons as the new stance system where each new weapon is just a moveset to attack a specific enemy type, which was what the Tsushima stance system did. So, in the end, Tsushima had 4 stances, 4 skill trees for use against 4 different enemy types, and now Yotei has 5 weapons, but 0 stances, so 5 skill trees for use against 5 different enemy types. Congratulations, dumbass! You got one small tiny addition to the combat system because the developers didn't feel like doing actual work. They didn't feel like doing an actual huge improvement over the previous game. They didn't bother to do what, for example, Rise of the Ronin did by having a bunch of different weapon types and a shit ton of different stances, all with their own unique special moves.
Pero Decembrito, that doesn't count. I mean, Rise of the Ronin is a action game, you know what I mean, brother?
Look, I don't really accept that kind of argument. Honestly, I think that a studio like Sucker Punch working with Sony for a PlayStation exclusive should have a higher standard. In fact, they used to have higher standards. That's why these games, the first ones that came out in the last generation with the PS4, did so goddamn well. Because they didn't just want to be more Ubisoft clones, they wanted to stand out and do better, and so they did. But now, the sequels have not. So honestly, my expectations aren't that low, I think they should be a little bit higher, but even if they're not, that's okay. But just call it what it is. Don't call it a huge improvement, because I'm going to go looking for that improvement and I'm not going to be able to find it. Unless you're just talking about the graphics, in which case I'm just not going to take you seriously at all. And beyond this, I also already gave an example of how dry the open world experience is earlier in the video. Literally just a rehash of the previous game where the notable improvements are the visuals and the notable add-ons have been these minigames like cooking and playing guitar. So a huge step up? I mean, I don't know, maybe if you're like 4 feet tall or something, this would be a huge step up, but not like this. Also, a classic sequel? Where the fuck is the sequel? Even the meaning of the Ghost name has changed. It used to mean something specific and carried great significance. It was something that was built up to throughout half of the game. Now you're not even the Ghost. You're an Onryo. But even if we ignore that and the fact that this is not a sequel because it has nothing to do with the first game, think about what the words classic sequel mean to you guys. To me, it kind of immediately makes my brain go straight to Arkham Asylum to Arkham City, or Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2, or Assassin's Creed to Assassin's Creed 2. These are the kinds of things that hit me in the head. And these huge transitions to massively successful sequels have nothing to do with Yotei. Yotei does not invoke even a fraction of what that does. But hey, whatever, maybe that's my fault and I get too autistically invested in the meaning of words. Especially from people who flaunt their credentials, but whatever. Maybe he's just a big Sony fan, I don't know, but let's just get to the actual list that he's talking about, where the game is at number 18 before we move on to what happened later. So, this is the list, and again this is the Mat Piscatella thing from Circana. What you're looking at is a ranking list that ranks games' performance based on how much money they made so far. See up there in the purple? Ranked on dollar sales. To my understanding, this implies a bunch of other stuff that gets a bit complicated, like for instance, we all know how well Silksong sold. Silksong sold so damn well that it made other developers get upset at them for shadow dropping the game instead of having a proper announcement. But each copy of Silksong is only $20, so you'd need about 4 copies in order to count for one single sale of a major game like Borderlands 4 or Ghost of Yotei. I won't go into these intricacies too much, it's just something to keep in mind though, because none of this is explicit here. They don't let you know how much is the figure that they're counting. All we get is a ranking list where all the details are lost. They don't actually tell you how many dollars each of these games made, which would allow for us to have an assessment of how many that translates when it comes to copies sold. Another example of fuckery is again Monster Hunter Wilds. It dominated this year with 10 million sales. That is a homunculus amount of money. Right behind it we have Borderlands 4. This in no way means that Borderlands 4 is anywhere close to Monster Hunter's 10 million sales. If it did, Randy Pitchford would be uploading videos strip teasing in Vegas just to celebrate.
My name is Randy Pitchford. I am.
Shut your fucking mouth! No problem, Charles. Shut the fuck up, you
This just means that there's a massive disparity between number 3 and number 2, and that's that we know of because thankfully we got the numbers from Monster Hunter for reference. But without numbers, we're blind here, and this list means very little. It's just a nifty little thing for executives to dance around and for journalists to gush over in whatever suits their narratives. For example, do you notice how you can't find Assassin's Creed Shadows anywhere? Isn't it funny how a few months ago it was the top-selling game in the United States right behind Monster Hunter Wilds? This is Mat Piscatella's own words, by the way. Shills rejoiced. Oh, goodness gracious. Someone check in on the chuds, they're gonna need some milk. And according to this article from a few weeks ago, Assassin's Creed Shadows outsold every other new game that released this year. Well, where the fuck is it then? Where's this Adonis of a video game? Where's this groundbreaking success? I actually had to do a triple take to make sure the game was not on the list, like maybe I was too sleepy, my vision too blurry or whatever. Let me read the list 3 times to make sure that this game is not here, because how could it not be here? All we've heard this year from shills and content creators and gaming news and assholes like Mat Pistachio is how much of a grand success Assassin's Creed Shadows was, and how the chuds were owned and are supposedly crying. Well, where is it? Where's the game? Well, it's not there. And the reason why is because it doesn't matter. Because at the moment, the conversation is not about Shadows. It's about Yotei. If the conversation was about Shadows, Matt Prosciutto over here wouldn't have shown people this list, because the way the data is skewed and presented on it makes Assassin's Creed Shadows look like shit. And this is fundamentally another great example of why I don't trust Matt and these analysts for shit. Yotei is at 18th place, with only 3 days worth of sales. Like, wow, bro, damn. Well, that's crazy, holy man, wow. Wow, that's really, wow. Who gives a shit? Just give me the damn sales data. Or at the very least, here's something that a guy like Colin Moriarty, who is apparently such an industry professional, should have done. He should have shown people the list and moved on. I am not even asking him to do half of what the fuck I'm doing to interpret what's in front of us. I'm just saying show the list and move on. But instead, he has to say that the game is a huge hit. And so this is where shit started to hit the fan, because Smash JT is someone who some of you may already be aware of here. But if not, then he's a member of the Italian mafia.
Where you from, Henry?
Sicily.
What brought you to the States?
Mussolini.
We buy you a ticket.
Sorry, I meant that he's a guy who makes videos and runs his own game journalism website /blog. He's independent and he covers gaming news. That's basically what Smash JT is. He retweeted Colin saying, "Oh wow, I wasn't aware that this was officially a certified hit. You forgot to point people to the official statement by Sony or Sucker Punch. That's because it doesn't actually exist." And then this devolved into a whole spat between the two of them online before them agreeing to have a live conversation on Smash's channel about it. And the live conversation ended up being mostly a mess. Instead of talking about the actual subject, it soon devolved into ad hominem bullshit and purity testing nonsense where, to Colin, Smash is just not credible. But instead of trying to prove his lack of credibility and legitimacy by attacking his arguments and breaking them down with facts and examples, or maybe looking up things where he's just dead wrong and he's spreading lies, he just made it about his content. How it's negative, 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 and calling him a tourist who doesn't even play video games. Basically, Colin spent the few hours that he had before going live with Smash digging into what his haters say online about him, and the result was an embarrassing ass fucking display of ignorance and arrogance. Arrogance because he believes himself more important because he works in the industry, and ignorance because anyone who follows his channel knows that while he is not perfect and has made mistakes, he does have a positive track record and does like playing various games, many of them on stream. Colin Moriarty even made a stupid ass snide comment about, oh, where's the breakdown of Journos the New Dawn? Like, I couldn't believe the retardation that I just heard.
The interesting thing about how this all seems to work is people that don't understand who someone else is, oftentimes they just hear the negative stuff and the negative perception of, oh, that's all that guy is. Because they don't actually research and find out, oh, actually, he's multifaceted and talks about a lot of different things. And I found him because of something he hated, but he actually talks about things that he loves too.
I looked at your YouTube channel. It was all, I mean, I'm sure there's things on there, but it was all just the same shit. It's not really about, yeah, it's really not about, like, I would love to see, do you do like deep dives into games and like play games with people and like talk about the games you play? Or is it about everything that you hate and like the next woke thing and the woman or the, didn't you like, or when you called, like, didn't you call Tales of Kenzera Zao woke because it had black people in it?
No, I feel like Tales of Kenzera Zao got caught up in the crossfire of a situation. I actually feel bad for Abu Bakr Salim. Good dude.
Well, if you feel bad for people like that, you should think twice about kind of some of the energies you're putting into the ether in the industry.
No, I think it's important. That's why we're here, is to find out information, to give the information to people.
Last video is breaking, massive layoffs at Ubisoft. Yotei, next video, Yotei flops. Next video, the gamers woke revolution crashes. The next gamer, Microsoft has no clue what gamers want. The next one, man wins women's only Fortnite tournament. The next one, now they're saying Twitch CEO Dan Clancy did nothing wrong. The next one, TwitchCon streamers PC infected by massive virus. Like, where is the game? I'm not seeing anything here. There's no, like, I'm scrolling through your shit. Like, I see nothing about any games. There's nothing about a single, there's nothing about I'm calling you out here. There's nothing about a single fucking game on here that you've played. Like, where is the content about
I'm also calling you out. Maybe you should watch them to find out.
Is like, so I want to understand, is within the confines of the video titled Asmongold destroys Sony Pony fanboy, is there like a deep analysis of Journos the New Dawn in there that I'm missing? How about, is there behind the video the title Goonergate Returns, the extreme right? Is there some sort of real deep dive into like what Xbox's strategy is?
Probably not in that video, but Colin, you have to understand.
What are you, fucking stupid?
Apparently, according to people like this, your criticism of the industry and your rightful suspicion of games journalism that you have accrued over a decade of fucking lies is only valid if you have video essays on random video games that you liked. What's that? What are you saying over there? What are you asking for? Oh, you want the source for the numbers of the sales data? Excuse me, but where's your 3-hour breakdown of Deus Ex Human Revolution? It's so fucking ridiculous. Please feel free to check it out for yourselves on this channel. It's pretty entertaining, all things considered. It's just too bad that it wasn't very productive. Suffice to say that Colin Moriarty would have none of us making videos and none of you concerned customers exercising critical thinking in instances like these because of credentials. Don't double check the numbers, don't mind the inconsistencies, don't bother with track records, hell, don't even notice the giant elephant in the room that is the culture war fueled shit that infests the games industry. This is another thing that's kind of like the Schrodinger's cat thing. It's the Schrodinger's culture war, where for people like Colin, they only acknowledge the culture war when they want to look at someone like Smash, or maybe Hypnotic, or perhaps Vara Dark, or hell, maybe even Asmongold, and say that these are biased grifters corrupted by the culture war, who feed off of it and whom without it would have no content to make because again, where's the video essay on Journos New Dawn and the incredible approach to horror or whatever the fuck the theme would be?
What I think is true is that you wouldn't be able to do what you do if you actually talked about the games.
This is why I dislike this entire conversation so much. It's because it's so stupid, it's so pointless. Like, it doesn't matter what kinds of videos he does, what matters is the information. I mean, what even is this argument? Like, if I go down to the, like, I don't know, the fucking lifeguard station at the beach and I just looked at him and I told him, well, I think that you wouldn't be able to do what you do if there was no water. It's like, okay, chief, can we go back to the thing about the numbers, the analysts, you know, how he has been wrong in the past, how we should be able to question these things because clearly there are agendas up in the goddamn games industry, and sometimes it's best to be able to double check things. It's good to be a little bit, what's the word? What is the word? It's not suspicious, it's another word. You know, fuck this. English as a second language. You guys are gonna have to go with suspicious. It's good to be a little suspicious of numbers, of people in the industry. It doesn't take a genius or a rocket scientist degree to understand why. The sheer state of games journalism and the examples I already gave in this video show precisely why. And by the way, I remember the word now, it's skeptical. It's good to be a little skeptical of what the industry tells us. But if you show them screenshots like this of what goes down at the game developers conference with activists in the industry openly making shit political, or lines like this from the Gamescom guy wanting more politics in video games and vice versa because of how they're good to get to the youth who play them, so on and so forth, I have no shortage of receipts that I use in my videos. When it's stuff like this, then suddenly there's nothing there. Suddenly the grifters disappear, suddenly there is no such thing as a bias, there is no such thing as influence, there's no such thing as a problem anywhere. It's all just nonsense, fit to laugh at and ridicule. And this is why I don't take this guy seriously at all. Like, look at this example as well right here. Some guy asks Colin, how is Ghost of Yotei woke? So many on here claim that and yet never give a justifiable answer to this. And Colin's response is, the honest answer is, I don't know. I assume because it has a female protagonist and was made by a presumably very liberal team. But 40-ish hours in, I'm not seeing the woke. People are mad at everything. You ultimately can't look too deeply into it or take it very seriously. So let me get this straight. Colin is supposed to be taken as a serious journalist in this industry. He's supposed to be the guy that body slams pointless unserious parasites like Mat Piscatella and other YouTubers. He's supposed to be the arbiter of data because he has access to it. And it's legit because he is the godfather of PlayStation podcasts. By the way, this is very telling actually. I didn't notice this before now. And you know, he's a big shot. He was around for years. He's got credentials. He broke many stories. He was the writer of 5 indie games. He owns and co-owns some media company and some game studio, etc, etc, etc. Also very notably got his ass fired from Kinda Funny for the same retarded type of shit that he's now using against Smash. But somehow, despite all of these credentials, despite all of these calls for authority, or calls to authority rather, he hasn't yet realized that this entire drama surrounding Yotei isn't even that related to wokeness at all, by the sense of the word, which usually relates to content in the game, and is actually more so to do with the actress and with what just happened a few weeks ago. This guy is such a big guy, but his assertion on this is that it's because of woman protagonist? Well, what about the other female protagonists out there? Where the fuck is the hate for Chronos The New Dawn, for example? We play as a woman in it, as far as I'm concerned. That's a September release. Where's the hate for Silksong? Where's the hate for Wu-Chang? For an entire year, this guy never saw that people were pissed off about the replacement of Jin and leaving his story hanging. For an entire year, he never saw people saying how they'd be pissed if the same thing happened with female-led games getting their stories cut short just to shove in some other fucking character? Fuck, I was one of the people myself back then talking about it. I gave the examples of the Horizon games. Ain't nobody wanna have Horizon Zero Dawn where we got this story presented to us, and then in the end there's a teaser that Silent steals Hades and crosses the desert into the Forbidden West, and then for the sequel we would just have all of that dumped into a trash can and start over hundreds of years later with a new guy named, I don't know, Joey Salads or some shit, with a boring ass revenge story instead of following up with all the crazy stuff from the first game with Hades and Pharaohs and with a colony of humans who left Earth. Nobody wants to get like a Tomb Raider game with Lara Croft and then suddenly we get the sequel and we play hundreds of years later with a new guy named Larry. We don't want Larry Croft and the Chamber of Secrets, we want a continuation of our stories with our characters. I guess a whole year passed and he didn't see that though. Did he at least see the shit that the actress spewed on social media? Did he miss the circumstances surrounding all of this? Did he miss what activists did to Veilguard? Did he miss the exact same sign of unhinged developers talking shit online at their player base a few weeks before launch? Did he miss where an unhinged guy from Obsidian popped up acting crazy and how then the game released months later and just like clockwork, the game was shit too? Did he miss marvels like Dustborn, made by activists and resulting in utterly embarrassing content? Do I even need to go on here? Does this guy not understand how that choice of casting an unhinged radical left activist may cause people to immediately have concerns about the game being bad? And those concerns are valid because we've seen it happen over and over and over again? Did he miss what just happened a few weeks ago? This dude didn't even say it up there, he just glossed over it with, "Oh, I don't know, I guess presumably it's made by a very liberal team." Like, are you fucking serious, my dude? A very liberal team? Shit, that's the understatement of the year. It has to be when they were inhumanely celebrating and mocking the assassination of a father over political disagreements. Did he miss that whole event? Did he miss how bad the response from the studio was? How afraid the studio was to disavow political violence? How they danced around it like, "Oh, I think we're against it. Kind of. I think that's where we are as a studio." Did he miss the fact that that shit right there directly confirmed the concerns that people had when they saw the actress all the way back last year? They saw the casting and they thought to themselves, maybe I'm just being an exaggerative retard, but this could mean that the studio is compromised by activists and that's why they hired another activist. Did he miss the fact that people just straight up don't want to support that kind of thing? Did he fucking miss that this is just yet another example within Sony and an even smaller one in the wider games industry of games bait and switching their fan bases to do sequels or reboots with female protagonists or other changes for no other reason at all other than to play into these kinds of lists right here on screen, which are packed with creative restrictions and diversity quotas? This is another one of those Schrodinger's cat situations, by the way, where they will address that this stuff exists when they want to praise it as progressive, but will immediately say it doesn't exist and it's all in our bigoted heads when it's inconvenient for them. How the fuck did you miss all of this and your result was, oh, you know, female protagonist, even though there's cakeloads of examples of female protagonists and prominent female characters in big and small franchises that go through zero problems, but no, trust me bro, it's totally just the female protagonist. Honestly, my dude, if by some infinitesimal chance you're watching this, you're a fucking joke. If not, the result is the same. This is the same old story with people trying to create strawman arguments that they can successfully argue against because actually addressing what's going on is inconvenient, or going on streams for a discussion about a topic and just ending up attacking someone's character with nonsensical bullshit that is completely unrelated to anything of value at all. Everything and anything but actually addressing the meat of the matter, because the meat of the matter is uncomfortable and gives you the shits. But anyway guys, that's it for this video. I've been ranting for way too long already. Expect a Dying Light video soon, and maybe a Borderlands 4 video as well. You should actually leave me a comment down below if that's something that you would be interested in, because I'm not sure if I want to put in the time to making it. Borderlands 4 is just so uninteresting as a topic. So yeah, let me know if you're interested, or let me know if you're not, so I can get an idea of how lengthy I should make it, or if I should make it at all. And beyond that, yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, giving it a like is a huge help for me. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.